I still really don't know what I'm looking at with the 49ers. Neither do you, and neither do they. I don't think anyone really has a grasp on what this team is right now. Because if you're looking for a halfway decent football team, you can find one. If you're looking for a football team that has got so many, well, that's a fatal flaw built into their formula. You can find one there too. The 49ers are a lot of things all at once. They're pretty good, and they're also legitimately pretty bad at some big areas that are, points of contention for any good football team. It's hard to say, I trust you when you're this bad on special teams all the time. It's hard to say, I trust you when you're doing such a poor job getting to the quarterback. It feels like you miss tackles all the time, and running backs are only falling forward against the San Francisco 49ers. Again, coming off a bye, as desperate a Seattle team as you will see take the field in any game that they play this year. That's what's coming to Levi's Stadium. And the next 3 games, when you really look at them, Seattle home, then on the road to Buffalo, and then Green Bay. This is a must-win this Sunday, followed by a must-split the next 2 Sundays for the 49ers to still have the math in their advantage. Let's take our emotions out of it completely. 49ers facts, no emotions, no feels, just facts. Here we go. Are you ready? Are you ready for the just facts? Offensive DVOA. What is DVOA, Damon? What is DVOA? It's defense adjusted value over average. In other words, it takes your offensive formula, applies it to the team that you're playing against, and looks at what other teams and average offenses do, gain yards, what they look like. And it sort of is a fair measuring stick, measuring you against what the league average is. The 49ers offense is 3rd in DVOA. The 49ers defense is 4th in DVOA. The only other team in football to have a top 5 DVOA score offensively and defensively is the Detroit Lions. And everyone looks at the Detroit Lions right now as the team to beat. Kansas City might be undefeated, but number 1 in just about all your power rankings, you'll find the Detroit Lions. The San Francisco 49ers, had they not been a clown show on special teams, are probably sitting at 7-2 and are being regarded as the team that absolutely nobody wants to play. But that's not where they are. So they're not being regarded that way. Special teams DVOA, number 31. Again, as bad as you can get in football. You can't have worse special teams than what the 49ers put out on the field. This is why it's biting them in the ass every single game. It's bad. Not some of the time, pretty much all of the time. And what's also like mind-numbingly frustrating about the 49ers is they're 3rd in the NFL in percent of drives that end in a score. 3rd in the NFL in drives that end in scoring. Yet way too many of those drives are field goals and recently missed field goals. You want to just scratch your head a little harder to the point where you're bleeding? The 49ers have punted the fewest times in the NFL. Some of that is obviously, the half ran out. You didn't have the full series. There's some skewing in there for sure. But the 49ers have such a good offense. They're rarely punting. They're moving the ball with relative, I don't want to say ease, but they're 400 yards of offense per game, every game in a league where you got teams, looking for 300 yards of offense. The Niners are just at 400 yards of offense. They played 1 game with Christian McCaffrey so far this year, and that guy is the straw that stirs the drink more than anybody else. And look, I'm just telling you, you take your feelings out of this. You take your eyes off the game that you watch that leaves you frustrated. You just dive into the numbers. Again, a top 5 offense, a top 5 defense. They basically don't punt. They're number 2 in yards per play. They're number 3 in drives that end in a score. They move the ball. Their defense, it's a big-time bend, don't break situation. They just had a day in Tampa that didn't feel like a dominant defensive afternoon. From a yardage standpoint, it was their best afternoon so far of the season. Again, our eyes, I don't know if they're the ones that are lying, or maybe we're diving into stats to lie to ourselves about this team. I don't know. But to just say, I don't like it because it feels, I get it, but that's not really how sports works. Like, production does have to matter. And the 49ers still have an element of production about them, which means they are not quite the peeled banana trash can emoji that some people decide, oh, this team was trash. They were 1-3 and they'll never win another game and the whole year is over. Not quite. CMC, getting back to the 49ers, has got himself the exact team on the schedule that he wants to see. As Christian McCaffrey is ramping back up, and I'll tell you what, for a guy who's ramping up, he had 56 snaps against Tampa Bay. Where did Jordan Mason go? He only had 3. Where did Isaac Guerrero go? He only had 3. Deebo Samuel Jr. in the backfield had 2 snaps. Can we get carries for capable players for the benefit of Christian McCaffrey? Sounds like a really good formula to start working out in your own mind there, Kyle Shanahan. Just throwing it out there for you. When it comes to Seattle, though, you do want an awful lot of Christian McCaffrey out there, because there is no team that Christian McCaffrey sees that uniform and thinks to himself, hot supper, I'm going to eat here tonight. Saw this from Nick Wagner. Christian McCaffrey averages 163 scrimmage yards per game against Seattle. He had at least 125 in all 6 career games he's played against them. And if he does that again on Sunday, and again, he came back after a half-season layoff with injuries that had everybody concerned about, could he even play effectively? And in his very first game back, he had over 100 yards from scrimmage. Now, again, Seattle, a team he matches up great against. If he goes over 125 scrimmage yards again in this game against Seattle, he'll tie Jim Brown as the only 2 players with 7 straight games of 125 or more scrimmage yards against one opponent in NFL history. Jim Brown used to do that against the Philadelphia Eagles. Jim Brown would see the Eagles and just think, I'm going off today. And he would. Christian McCaffrey, more than 125 scrimmage yards, becomes one of the all-time Seattle Seahawks killers, in the same way that, Jim Brown was clearly an Eagles killer. So really, this is a good matchup, hopefully, for McCaffrey. Let's not burn McCaffrey's wick, out in the first couple hours of the tornado hitting, right? You don't need to burn out the battery of the flashlight looking at the campfire. You got 2 good players that you're going to want some production from. It's not like they're giving you much less than McCaffrey. They're much different players, but they have their own skill sets to offer this team that I think that the team needs. And it's a pretty good skill to be a guy who's taken some weight off of McCaffrey's shoulders. Again, if you want to talk about what's the best way to probably re-aggravate bilateral Achilles tendonitis, let's give him 56 more snaps this week. Again, the 49ers have been wildly frustrating in moments. If we could just subtract a few of those moments, you're probably talking about a 7-2 football team right here, right now. But they want to be this bad on special teams. There's certainly no fire burning underneath them to correct it. So is it going to get corrected? The answer, I think, is a definitively loud no. I mean, the silence is deafening when it comes to how concerned Kyle Shanahan and his crew seems to be about this, which is bonkers to me. Thanks for watching. Tune into the Damon Bruce Show live on YouTube every weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.